I'm 24 years old and I've never had a girlfriend. Not when I was a teenager, not now, not ever. And I don't say that for pity. I say it because it has shaped the way I understand love more than any romance ever has. Some people meet love early. It happens to them almost naturally. A school hallway, a late night phone call, a hand held under a table. A first kiss, awkward enough to become sacred later. They get initiated into that world at the age when the soul is still soft. They learn, slowly, through embarrassment and tenderness and heartbreak, what it means to be wanted by one person in that way. I did not get that. When I was younger, I was ugly, fat, and unbelievably anxious. Not that cutesy little book guy movie anxious, not charmingly shy. I mean, the kind of anxious where your whole body, your whole being feels misplaced, where every social interaction feels like you are being measured and quietly found lacking, where you don't enter a room, you're either just there and it feels like people are painfully reminded of it, or it's like you're invisible and not even there, where you become conscious of your body in in the worst possible way. Not as something alive, not as a living being, but as something wrong, something visible, something that disqualifies you before you even speak. And so I missed it. I missed that early education in being loved romantically. I missed teenage love. I missed being chosen when everybody else was first learning that they could be. That absence stays with you. People like to act as if you can simply grow up and move on, as if time heals what time never even allowed to begin. But I don't think that's true. I think some absences ripen inside you. I think they grow teeth. I think that when a certain kind of love does not arrive in the season when your heart expected it, something in you remains unfinished. You continue living, obviously. You improve yourself, you build, you adapt, you become harder, more disciplined, more acceptable. At least that's what I did. I changed my body. I got fit. I became relatively well built. I learned how to carry myself better. And the world changed almost immediately, which is one of the cruelest things I have ever learned. People are more forgiving when you look better. They are more curious, more open, more receptive. They project better things onto you. They assume confidence where there may only be composure. They assume experience where there may only be restraint. They assume substance from merely shape, mind from matter. And that teaches you something ugly about human beings. It teaches you that a body is often read as a biography, that muscles can become a false testimony, that people look at you and imagine a man you may not actually be. So now I live with a different problem. Before, I felt invisible. Now, I feel misread. Before, I was rejected before even being seen. Now, I find myself often desired before being known. And neither one is love. Because what happens is this: someone notices me. They respond to the physique, the face, the outline, the shell. They think I'm one kind of man. Maybe more confident than I am, maybe more casual than I am, maybe more experienced, maybe more dominant, maybe simpler, maybe less inward, less strange, less severe, less hungry in the soul. And then, sooner or later, disappointment arrives. Not always dramatically, oftentimes quietly, sometimes just in tone, sometimes in the fading of interest, sometimes in that subtle shift where a person realizes, I'm not the fantasy they prepared for themselves. That is a very specific kind of humiliation. To be wanted for what people imagine. To be left because of what you actually are. And I know how that sounds, right? It sounds self-pitying. It sounds theatrical, dramatic even. And while it may be dramatic to a certain extent, I don't think it is theatrical at all. I think it's one of the oldest tragedies in human life. To be seen, but not truly. To be desired, but not loved. To be approached, but not reached. A lot of people think loneliness means having no one. That's not quite right. You can have friends, real friends, good friends, friends who love you, who cherish you, who would answer the phone if you called at 3 a.m. I'd say I have that, and I'm grateful for it. But friendship, no matter how beautiful, does not answer every hunger. There is a kind of yearning that friendship cannot touch. Not because friendship is small, but because romantic longing is a different species of ache. Your friends can love you deeply and still leave untouched that one unbearable desire to be singled out, to be chosen, to be looked at by one woman as if your existence, specifically yours, matters to her in a way that no one else's does. That is a different kind of mercy. And when you have never received it, you begin to feel not merely alone, but incomplete. As if there is a chamber in the soul that has never been entered. As if a part of your humanity is still merely theoretical. As if everyone else has crossed some invisible border and you are still standing on the wrong side of it, looking in. That feeling becomes worst at night. During the day, life protects you from yourself. Tasks, noise, movement, routine, gym, work, school, conversation. All of it creates a temporary structure. But late at night, when the world grows silent, the structure falls away. And then you are left with the naked fact of your own inadequacy. You lie there, unable to sleep, not because something dramatic happened, right? But because precisely nothing happened. Because once again, there's nobody beside you. Because once again, your heart remains untouched in that specific place. Because once again, you have to face the suspicion that maybe there is something in you that makes you unworthy of love. And that suspicion is corrosive. It enters the mind like a poison. It says, you are not enough then, you are not enough now. You changed your body, but not your fate. You polished the surface, but the center remains spoiled. That's when bad habits begin to make sense. Lust, mindless doom scrolling, porn, flirting without conviction, entertaining possibilities you don't even believe in, seeking fragments of validation from people you don't even want, trying to extract water from dried up wells. It's all thirst. That's the only word I have for it. Thirst. Not ordinary desire, not simple horniness, not mere loneliness. Thirst in the biblical sense. Thirst like a man crossing a desert with the memory of water, but none in sight. Thirst like the body and soul have entered into an argument with one another. Thirst like there is something you were made for, and the lack of it has started to deform you. And lust is such a convincing counterfeit because it promises contact, it promises relief, it promises the end of tension, but it gives almost nothing, or worse even, it gives something briefly and then takes much more in return. That is why bad habits feel so degrading. Not only because they are immoral or pathetic or embarrassing, though they can be all three of these things, but because they reveal that the hunger is real, while the chosen remedy is false. It's an empty substitute. It's like dying of thirst and drinking salt water. The act itself is understandable. The result is ruin. And maybe that's what a lot of modern love is. People with spiritual thirst trying to medicate themselves with bodies. Some do it casually, some cynically, some elegantly, some ironically, some with shamelessness. But beneath it, there is often the same ancient misery. I want to be touched in the place where touch cannot reach. That's what makes this so difficult to speak about. Because I can't pretend I am above lust. I can't pretend I have not reached for false things. I can't pretend I have not confused attention with hope, or desire with meaning, or chemistry with salvation. I've done all of it. I still do, in smaller and uglier ways than I would like to admit. Amongst the sinners, I am the first. But even in those moments, I know lust is not the thing itself. Because what I have wanted, really wanted, has never been just access to a body. It's too easy. It has been recognition. It has been that impossible seeming thing where another person looks at you and does not merely view the image, but encounters the self. And that almost never happens. Plenty of girls have shown interest in me. That's true. And I don't say that proudly because it doesn't solve anything. Interest is not the same as resonance. Being wanted is not the same as being met. It often didn't click for me. Oftentimes, out of no fault of the girls. And when it did click for me, far too often, it clicked only for me. That is its own private hell. To feel the beginning of meaning where the other person feels almost nothing. To attach inwardly while they remain untouched. To sense possibility in a glance, a conversation, a moment, a softness in the air. And then discovered it only existed on your side. There are few things more sobering than asymmetry. You realize that longing is not proof, intensity is not proof, sincerity is not proof. You can feel something deeply and still be alone, completely alone in it. And so a strange pattern emerges. The women who want you are often not the woman you want. The women you want often don't want you. And in the rare cases where something almost aligns, it slips. Timing, uncertainty, fear, incompatibility, disappointment, misreading. One thing is enough to kill it. After a while, you begin to feel cursed by near misses. Not dramatic tragedy, not just repeated non-arrival. As if you stop at the station right before your destination and are forced to return back whence you came from. And repeated non-arrival does something to the soul. For even God said, "It is not good for man to be alone." Non-arrival makes you question your own nature. Not just your looks, not just your confidence, not just your technique, your nature. You start wondering whether there's something fundamentally ill-fitted in you. Something that can be admired, maybe even desired, but not truly received. Something that can inspire curiosity, but not devotion. Something that can generate sparks of interest, but not the flame itself, not the flame that remains. Maybe that sounds extreme, but if you live long enough inside romantic absence, your thoughts become extreme whether you want them to or not. Because love is not a hobby. Not if you're built this way. Not if you feel things to the bottom. Not if every failure echoes backwards into all the failures before it. Then love becomes philosophical. It stops being merely about dating. It becomes a question of being, a question of whether one is, in some essential way, at home in the human world. A question of whether one's soul is actually reachable. A question of whether one will spend life translating oneself badly to people who only wanted the poster, not the person. I don't have a neat answer to that. Perhaps I'm looking too deeply into this. I only know the experience, the missed years, the changed body, the altered gaze of others, the private disappointments, the girls who wanted me when I felt nothing, the girls I wanted who felt nothing, the late night inadequacy, the thirst, the bad habits, the friends whose love is real but cannot fill this one absence, the persistent feeling that somewhere inside me there is a room with one light still turned off. Maybe that's what I've learned about love. That before it becomes joy, for many people, it's first experienced as lack, as ache, as a missing piece that makes itself known precisely through the shape of the emptiness it leaves behind. Maybe love reveals itself first not in fulfillment, but rather in hunger. And maybe that's why the subject matters to me so much, because I have not known it fully. And because I have not known it fully, I have had to live with its shadow. I've had to study the outline of what was absent. I've had to infer the existence of water from the violence of thirst. I guess that may be interpreted in many ways. It may even appear as a wise saying to some, but it's not wisdom. It's not victory or freedom. It's not self-acceptance. It's simply the experience. The experience of wanting something real in a world full of substitutes. The experience of being seen wrongly. The experience of changing outwardly and remaining inwardly unresolved. The experience of lying awake at night and feeling with humiliating clarity that something inside you is unfinished. That's where I am. Not at peace, not above it, not beyond it. Just there.